welcome back to another video. So today we are going to be texturing the hangar that we modeled in the previous video, and we're going to be covering the process of texturing with materials here in Blender. We are going to be UV unwrapping the model and texture baking it so that Xplane has a texture sheet with the textures of the model that we can use. Let's go ahead and begin. So first of all, I would like to explain a few things. So in terms of materials, if you saw the introductory video, or if you're familiar with Blender, you're going to be familiar with this material properties tab, where you can add materials and change colors and add textures and stuff like that. Well, we're going to be using that. The other thing that we're going to be using is the UV editing tab, which, as you can see, if we select the object and then press tab to go into edit mode and press A, you can see that all of our UV islands show. And UV islands are simply faces, but on a 2D image plane. So this is going to help us map textures to some faces so that Xplane recognizes which faces have which textures. That's why it's called the UV map, because all of these faces are mapped to a certain texture. And then lastly, we're going to be going on the shading tab, and we're going to be doing some texture baking on this tab. So let's go ahead and begin. The first thing we're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up here, this circle right here that says material preview, and click on it. And this is going to take you to the material preview mode, which is going to let you preview your materials. If you are in solid view, which is this solid circle, you're not going to see materials. So make sure that whenever you want to preview your materials, you're in material preview mode, or you can also press Z and you're going to get this pie menu. Just hover down like that. You can also hover sideways for solid view, and then to the left for wireframe, to the right for solid, right for material. That's the shortcut I usually use, but if you want, you can choose to press on these circles if that makes it any easier for you. So for the textures, let me introduce you to this website. It's called textures.com. So whenever you go to textures.com, this is the homepage. You should sign up and you are going to get 15 free credits. And what this is basically, you can see this regular photo section. You have a ton of image textures of all sorts of things. Concrete, buildings, windows, doors, fabric, metal, all that stuff. And you can download them up to a certain resolution for free. There is a paid, obviously, option just to get like a higher resolution texture, but honestly, if you're starting out, this is a great website to go to, because you have all these things that you can use and put on your models. Maybe give them a download and try them out if you want. But if you want to follow along, of course, the folder with the textures that we're going to be using is zipped, and it should be found in the description. So go ahead and download that if you want, and let's head back into Blender and let's go into material preview. And we're going to start by adding a new material. So just click on new, and then just click on this box, a field, to rename the material, and let's just call this one wall. So once you've added your wall material, just go ahead and click on this yellow circle, and then on the second column, the fifth item says image texture. Just click on it, click on open, and then just go ahead and search for the tutorial building textures folder, and then simply select the wall.png image. You can see it's on the model, but it looks a little bit distorted and it looks completely wrong, right? Let's go ahead and head over to the UV editing tab, and let's go to material preview, C, by the way, and then just hover down, and there it is. And then if you press A, you can see kind of how our islands, the islands, by the way, just a reminder, are the faces, but on the UV editor are kind of scattered all around and overlapping each other. If we press U while hovering over the viewport, press U and let's press Smart UV Project, and then click on OK. Just leave all this at default. You should see that they're like more laid out, like more organized, and they all have their own space. You can also tell that on the model, the texture isn't distorted anymore. However, the scale is huge. So what we can do to fix that is we can just hover over the UV editor, press A, and then S, and then just go ahead and drag out, and you should be able to scale the image texture, how the texture repeats over the model. So that's one thing that's like a very useful thing about the UV editor. You can scale, you can rotate, you can do all that stuff. if you need to. And right now, actually, we are going to have to rotate this texture about 90 degrees because, you know, the lines are not sideways, they are actually vertical. So if we hover over the UV editor, press R and then 90, you can see that it changed the rotation of the texture on our model, and now it's 90 degrees. So we'll leave it at that, and that should be it for the wall pretty much. Now, if we go back to layout, go back into object mode, and then press this plus button right here on the material properties panel, and then click on new. We're going to call this material door. Okay, and we are going to click on the yellow circle, fifth item of course on the second column, click on open, and then click on this white door image texture. So now you can see that it doesn't show up anywhere on the model, and that's because it's pretty much masked out, so you have to assign it to some faces. We only really have two doors, these two. So this one on the front, make sure you're in face select mode by pressing 3. Press 3, select that one, shift, select that one, and you should have both of them selected. Just go to the door material, make sure you're in edit mode of course, click assign. So now you can see that there's some different texture assigned to those two faces. And if you go to the UV editing tab up here, you can see how these two islands or faces are on the UV editor because we have them selected. So let's actually start fixing the orientation, because this is obviously wrong. So let's go ahead and select this one first, and you can see how we have this island that we can move and mess around with, and you can see it changes how it looks like on the texture. What we're going to do is we're going to press 3 while hovering over this UV editor panel, and now you can just select this face. It's kind of like face select mode, but for the UV editing tab. So that kind of makes it quicker. So at the same time, I'll obviously just press G and move it here, and you can see it's kind of starting to look like a door but the handle is all the way up here. Well, realistically we want it to be here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna press R minus 90. Oh, whoops. While hovering over the UV editor, R minus 90, and you can see that's fixed it a bit, but we have to kind of scale this out on the horizontal axis. So just press S and then X, and then that should constrain it to the X axis. There's two axes, there's the Y and the X axis, of course, since it's a two-dimensional image. So keep that in mind every time you want to constrain to the horizontal and vertical axes for scaling and stuff like that. And as you can see, we just scaled it up a bit, and now it pretty much fills up the whole door. So it's pretty much as easy as that to get that done. Let's go ahead and work on this other one. So just select this face, make sure you're in face select mode of the UV editor, press G, move this inward, and we'll see where the handle is. It's on top, so R minus 90. Whoops, R minus 90. If you're wondering what R minus 90 is, it's just R to rotate, and then minus 90 is just minus 90 degrees. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that. And as you can see, it didn't take that much to adjust this door as well. So I think we are pretty much done with both doors. And now we are going to go ahead and take care of the front door. I think we can reuse the wall, kind of like reuse the wall material. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new slot. We're going to change this to wall. Make sure you're in object mode, and then press this 2. Once you press that 2, that means this is basically a duplicate version of the wall material. So we can change this one to hangar door. And we can just go to the UV editing tab, make sure we have that face selected, go to the hangar door material, and then click on assign. So now if you zoom out, you can zoom in and zoom out by scrolling on your mouse. Make sure you're on face select mode, and just kind of let's see. So first let's go ahead and press R90 to rotate it, and then S and then X to kind of scale it out. So that looks about right. There we go. And of course we wanted this to be a lot darker, so let's go ahead and head over to the shading tab. We are on the hangar door slot. Make sure you have that slot selected, and this is kind of like a shader setup. So let me explain what's going on here. These are nodes that you can move around by pressing G as well, or just by dragging them. Basically have the capability to change the look of the material that you're working on very drastically. So this is the image texture, This is a principled shader node, which basically just gives you the option to adjust the roughness, you know, the base color, specular, metallic values, all that stuff. And this material output is basically what's being output to the user. So in between the wall and the principled shader, we're going to add an HSV node to bring the value down of the color of the wall texture. So we're going to go ahead and press Shift A. So Shift A, just like on the viewport. We're going to head over to the color section, and you just press on the hue saturation value, just click on that one, and then it's going to kind of prompt you to place it somewhere. Just go ahead and put it right in between color of the wall.png and the color of the principled shader. So now what we can do is watch. We can bring this value down, and it's going to darken, kind of like darken the tone of that texture. Now that might be a little too dark, so let's go and bring that up. Maybe 0.8 should be good. I don't know. It depends on, of course, what you feel works for you. So yeah, this is not a great hangar door texture. If you want, you can look up another one in textures.com. There's definitely great ones in there, but I just kind of wanted to teach you that trick. So yeah, let's go ahead and continue with the rest of the model. Maybe we can assign the hangar door texture to these two faces, so make sure you're in face select mode. Shift select both of these, go into material properties, select the hangar door material, and then click on assign. Go into UV editing, and let's go ahead and adjust that. So scale that up like that, and there we go. Okay, head back into the layout, and let's press Alt A to deselect everything. By the way, if you haven't noticed, right down here you have my screencast keys, so you can check out what I'm pressing and, you know, all the shortcuts that I'm using if I don't mention them. So let's go ahead and texture the gutter and these top things. So for the gutter and these top things, I think we can use the same material. It just has to be a pretty dark one to kind of make this like differentiate from the color of the wall. So let's go ahead and add a new material, press new, let's call this one gutter slash gray, maybe, I don't know. And then while hovering over the gutter, make sure you're hovering over it, press L. And while hovering over these two things, press L. Wait, make sure you're hovering over the things on the roof here, these tubes, and then click on assign with the gutter slash gray material selected, and then just bring the color down. We don't have to add an image texture, we can just bring this color down a bit, maybe a little lighter like that. Okay, and that looks pretty decent. Let's go ahead and continue. Let's see, what else do we need to do? Okay, the roof. So for the roof, we're going to do a similar thing to what we did with the hangar door. We're going to add a slot, so just press on this plus button, and then from this drop down, select wall, and make sure you go into object mode, and then press on this 2 right here, and it's going to duplicate it. So now this is a standalone version of the wall material. We're going to call it roof, and we're going to do basically the same thing. So make sure you shift select these two faces of the roof, go to the roof material, click on assign, go into shading, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're just going to select this node, kind of drag it out by pressing G or by dragging it out like that, and then press Shift A, color, hue saturation value, and then just place that right in between, and just mess with this slider until you feel like the color is right. So I think 0.5 is pretty good, so we're going to leave it at that. Let's go back to layout. You have to do the lights now, and maybe like a fill white material as well. So let's go ahead and click on this plus button to add a new material slot. Click on new, and then just name this lights. We can just go with a really solid black or dark color for the lights. Just press L, hover over them, press L, and then make sure we've selected all of them. There's only 4, so let's go ahead and click on assign while the lights material is selected, and then just change this to like a really dark color, maybe something like that. I think that works. All right, so now you can see there's some of these borders here. Some of these edges are kind of, they look kind of ugly, so we can kind of make a fill material. So just add a new material slot, new material. We can just call this one white fill, and let's go ahead and make sure you're in face select mode. Shift select all of the faces kind of move around, shift select these. Let's zoom in. Just kind of do that. And maybe the outer ones as well. And this is just going to be a plain white material, so let me show you how that looks like right now. So if I select the white fill and click assign, you can see that the border looks a little bit better than, you know, this looks uglier, this looks a bit better. So we're going to do the same thing on this side, and I think if you want, you can do it on the inside parts of the doors. We didn't really add like frame or anything, but yeah. Let's go ahead and head over to white fill, click on assign, there we go. And you can do it for these inside parts, as I was saying. I'm pretty sure, yep. So let's just go down to the white fill material, click on assign. And make sure the white fill material is selected when you click assign, and that should be it. So press Alt A once again, deselect everything. I think we are done. So I think this is pretty good for the base texture of this hanger. It is pretty simple, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys some tricks and stuff for the main idea. Now that we're done with that, what do we do now? So let's say you're done texturing, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna head over to the UV editing tab. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a new one with a new layout so that we can bake all these textures to that new layout, so that XSpline can recognize the textures on these faces. So what we can do is simply head over to this yellow triangle, green triangle, and it says object data properties. Just click on it and then just go to the UV maps drop down and then click on this plus button to add a new one. And we're gonna call this one bake. Just make sure that the bake UV map is selected, and then press A to select everything, and then press use smart UV project, and then click on OK. And as you can see, we have a new layout. So we've done that. We are pretty much done to do the last thing, which is texture baking. So if we head over to shading, you can see we have all these materials right here on our materials properties tab. And what we're going to do is we're going to bake each and every single one of these materials into one single image texture. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, press Shift A, texture, and then image texture. This is the same thing as clicking on that yellow circle, but you're kind of doing it here in the node editor. And then you're just going to click on new, and you're going to kind of get this new image panel. Give it a meaningful name that, you know, will be specific to this hanger that you're working on. So we can just call this one I don't know, north hanger, since it's like towards the north, I don't know. And then make sure we change the width and height. So just click and then drag down to make sure both width and height are highlighted. And you can do 2048 for 2K, or if you want, you can bump this up to 4096. And this would be a 4K image texture if you really care about the resolution of it. So once you've set your resolution, just leave all of this as it is and then click on OK. And you can see that it's created this new north hanger image texture. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add a node on all of these materials that are going to have the same texture. So before you leave the wall material, just make sure that this node is selected, and you'll know it's selected because it has this white outline around it. If I deselect it, you'll see it doesn't have it, but if I select it, there it is again. Make sure it is selected. Okay, it's very important. And just go Shift A, image texture, and then from this drop down, make sure you select the north hanger one, and make sure it's selected. Then just hop on to the next one, and we'll do the same thing. And this is essentially, we're essentially telling Blender which materials are going to be baked to this image texture. So we're baking all of them to the image texture, obviously. So just keep adding them, and there it is. Just do that, make sure it's selected. And by the way, if you're wondering what this number is, it's basically the amount of users of this image texture. So right now 6 materials are using this same image texture, because if we hop on each and every one of them, you're going to see the same one. So that's what that number means if you were curious. Just add one image texture node, select north hanger, and there we go. So that is all the materials. Make sure you go through all of them and that every single one, this image texture is selected, because that's how Blender knows where to bake. All right. And so lastly, we have to go to this microwave looking thing, and this is the render properties tab. And by default, it's going to be at Eevee. So you're going to change your render engine right here to cycles. and then just head down to the bake tab. So just go to this bake tab, and you can see that it says bake type combined and all this fancy stuff. Don't worry about any of this too much. Just make sure you change this bake type to diffuse, and then make sure you, on this contributions influence section, make sure you uncheck direct and indirect. And that basically means that, like, if you have lights on your scene, it's gonna bake the lights as well. But we don't have any lights, like, we just want the color to show up. And yeah, that's pretty much what that means. And you should pretty much be all set. I would suggest putting this margin to something like 2 or 4 maybe. Just something really low so that the pixels in between the islands don't bleed. Alright, so oops, make sure we have that north hangar selected on the material. And then I always like to double check all my materials and make sure that they're all selected. And once you've verified that, all you have to do is make sure you have your object selected and then click on this bake button. So since I made it a 4K texture, it might take a little bit of time to bake, but basically you just have to wait until that's done. Alright, so once that's done, you can basically see from this panel right here that all our islands have a specific face assigned to them. So if you go to your UV editing tab and make sure that on this image drop down you have north hangar selected and you're in edit mode, just select some of these islands and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, look how this roof material has that roof texture assigned to that face. And if you select some of these wall faces, you're gonna see they're all assigned respectively to the face material that they should, the wall material that it should be assigned to. So that's kind of what this UV texture sheet is for. You can see there's the doors right there. If we select them, obviously there it is. They're all laid out so that Xplane can recognize where the textures are. That's the point. So if we go to layout, we are pretty much done. All we have to do now is go back to UV editing actually, and then make sure that north hangar is selected, and we're going to press on image and then save as, and then just save as image in whatever folder you want. And now basically if you go to that folder, you'd see that UV layout basically done for you already. And if we go ahead and save, just press Ctrl S to save, make sure you do that. We are going to basically, you don't have to do this, but sometimes I duplicate, so I select my object, Shift D to duplicate, and then right click to make sure it's in place, and then I press M, move to a new collection, and then backup. I name it backup, and then I just basically disable that collection. So basically if I make any changes to this object from now on, I have a backup in case I don't like my changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to show you guys how this texture, this texture actually works. So I'm going to get rid of all these materials, and I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to call it north hangar. And we are going to go to image texture, and we're going to click on open, and then we're going to select north hangar. And it's going to look off at first, but that's because remember how our UV map is actually the one that's rendering. If we select the one that's baked, you can see if that's the one that's rendering, it's going to use that bake layout, which is the one that we just baked to. And you can see that that looks pretty good, and that's pretty much ready for Xplane. There's another way to do it though. If you go to the shading tab and you press Shift A, inputs, UV map, and make sure you select the bake map, and then connect this UV node to the vector node, and that should do the same thing. Alright, so yeah, once that's done, you are pretty much done with your hangar. So if we go to the scene properties, you're gonna see this Xplane tab, and this comes from the add-on Xplane to Blender we installed on our previous video. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna export it for Xplane 12. If you have 11, of course, make sure you select 11.3 X. That's the latest Xplane 11 exporter version. But yeah, so let's go ahead and make sure we select our main collection as a root collection. Make sure you don't select backup since that one's disabled, and then just select this drop down, and you can see there's a bunch of options for this hangar. So we want to specify that it is a scenery object from this type drop down, and we're going to give it a name. It's going to be a north hangar or whatever you want. And then on default, just click on open and then select that north hanger texture. Before you export, make sure that if there's like some sort of path like that looks like this before your northhanger.png, just make sure you get rid of it and you just have northhanger.png. And also make sure that if you go to object data properties, that your bake UV map is selected instead of this UV map right here. Make sure the bake one is selected. And actually you can just get rid of this one and just click on export objects. And then simply go to wherever your blend file is saved. So mine is at my desktop, and here it is, my north hanger right there, the north hanger object. I'm just going to drag it over to my tutorial building textures folder, and now I'm going to select my north hanger texture alongside with it. Go to my objects folder of any scenery package. This is a really old one, so we can just use this. Go ahead and press Ctrl C to copy, and then just kind of head over here and Ctrl V to paste, and that should be inside of the objects folder of that scenery. So if we head into World Editor and open that scenery package, and we go to local objects north hanger, you can see that that looks pretty good from that preview. And we can just place it here. You can see it's huge. Let's see here. We could also place it like here or something, like wherever, honestly. And then we can just export. Make sure you target Explain version 12 and then just click on export and then just wait for warnings, proceed, whatever. And then we're gonna hop onto Explain and we're gonna check out how our hanger looks like. Alright, so we are now here in Explain, and as you can see, our hanger is right here exactly where we placed it. And all the textures are here, and Explain can recognize exactly which ones they are, and it all looks pretty good. Pretty good. I hope this tutorial helped you out. You guys basically have the capability to model and texture, put it into Explain, and export it. So congratulations on learning that new skill. I hope it's very useful to you and that your sceneries can just become better with the knowledge of 3D modeling and texturing. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, comments, or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment on this video. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.